Right, hello everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Viking Chat. And I'm delighted to be joined today by none other than Mr. Mal McCallion. So, hey Mal. For those of you who do not know Mal, Mal has been in and around the world of prop tech, residential prop tech, for 20 odd years, 25 years. Yeah. You wouldn't know it looking at his baby face. But Mal, I think, to my knowledge, kind of your first you were involved with Rightmove, is that correct?
It was Zoopla. So, very early on in 2000, like way before most people listening to this were probably born, I was involved in doing prime location. So I helped set up prime location back in 2000. We sold that to Daily Mail in 2005, and then messed around a bit with some magazines for a while, and then helped set up Zoopla back in 2008. So yes, been on that side of the fence, the challenges to Rightmove, and yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing it.
And then your journey out the back of that, since your Zoopla days, give us some other of your big hits.
Yeah, listen, so I had some great fun working with people like the Guild, running their tech business for a while. Been working with Get Agent and others, and consulting a lot with startups and some great entrepreneurs working very much in the property technology space. And I've just really, enjoyed seeing how those businesses grow, how they solve problems. And then to this point now where a year and a half, 2 years ago, I set up Model Prop when AI first started to appear, and have spent the last couple of years essentially helping to demystify AI for agents is kind of my primary goal. Help with AI literacy. I think that's a really, really important part of my job, and I think a part of all of our jobs is help people to understand what AI is. As an aside, I remember 25 years ago when we were starting prime location, spending a lot of time, understandably, explaining what the internet was, and now 25 years later, I'm explaining what AI is. So
doing it all over again.
And it's so, they say history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, and it's so fascinating, just because this is a fundamental change in technology, as we're going to discuss, and it's going to bring so much opportunity, I think, for great lettings agents to be able to really change how they do things and really kind of put themselves above their competitors.
So we've given today's topic quite punchy, but I like it. It's AI, get on board or get left behind. Which, you know, I love being a little bit more pushy on it. I feel there's been a lot of reassuring going on with people at the moment about AI. Don't worry, it's not going to impact you. It's not going to change your job. It's not going to change your company. It absolutely is. I was essentially before we start recording, I was chatting to the lovely Toby Martin yesterday. So listeners will have hopefully by now, by the time they listen to this, will have listened to the chat with Toby Martin about how you hone your AI voice. And as I said in there, as I've said a few times recently, I genuinely, legitimately think this is our generation's industrial revolution. I think whilst the internet brought an element of change to our society, fundamentally, we've still generally done things more or less the same way. We just had this incredible information resource at our fingertips, and obviously streamlined communication. So it kind of sped up what we did. It streamlined what we're able to do. But this is now 10x that, right? 100x that. We're looking at, you know, the more things I see, the more things I read, the more demos I see of what people are playing around with. There's a great newsletter I read if people are trying to kind of wrap their head around it. And at times, I will be honest, I do find this newsletter a little bit overwhelming because they've got like 5 different channels and I've signed up to all of them. So they've got one that's like general AI, one's for founders, one's about security, one's about this, that. But it's TLDR, if people don't know. So it's an abbreviation for too long didn't read. So they keep it really short. But if you want to have your mind completely blown about the litany of AI things that are happening, skim that, get that, subscribe to that, get that in your inbox, and just commit to having a little read, having a little look. I think what's really exciting at the moment is not only what's happening, but obviously because we're at this really exciting embryonic stage of everyone trying to figure out the multitude of litanies of how they can leverage the technology,
Yeah.
the cost to implement it at the moment generally is so low.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, and it is plummeting, you know. So actually, I think it's something like 250 times cheaper to use ChatGPT now than it was when it first came out, you know, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And it's just continuing to go down. So the cost of computers continues to go down. And as a result of that, I think, as you said, we've all got to be prepared. This is not a drill. You know, we are going to find ourselves very, very quickly in an era where intelligence is everywhere.
Yeah.
All right. And that is the big kind of change in our that we have to get used to. Is it's no longer going to be about what you know, because you're going to know everything. And
and it's a seismic shift, right? Like, one of the big changes we've seen in base already is we are seeing more and more leads come to us because people are defaulting to engines like ChatGPT as their default search engine now.
Yeah.
You know, you no longer do you type in good letting agent in Google and you get your generic 3 or 4 sponsored listings and your typical top 10 agents in London who've spent a fortune on SEO backlinks to make sure they perform for those key tasks. It doesn't really tell you anything. I think what's fascinating with ChatGPT is this conversation element to it, right? I mean, obviously they are predominantly LLMs, large language models, as we know. But I think what's so exciting about using them, you know, it's like having the world's best assistant in your back pocket who never sleeps, never has a bad day, doesn't get everything right, but never gets pissed off, doesn't take anything personally. You know. But you know, we're starting to get landlord leads coming in where ChatGPT has been recommending base. And what's interesting is we've been asking the landlords who've inquired. In fact, we literally just put a property live, I think yesterday or today, which has come through ChatGPT from South London, Peckham, an area we don't really have much presence in at all. So that's really interesting. From an SEO perspective, we wouldn't have performed in a traditional sense of the word down there. But we asked the landlord what she put in when she was searching. And the interesting thing is, like I said, they're not putting in local letting agents. She described her ideal letting agent. So she went, I want to work with an independent letting agent that has a fairly small operation, but that is well established, has a strong reputation for customer service. Importantly, and we've seen this as a common theme with several of the landlord leads we've had recently, they actually put in the prompt, they want an agent that prides itself on the experience the tenants get. Or you know, wants an agent that looks after the tenants just as well as it does the landlord. We've seen that multiple times in prompts. Yeah,
and that is happening, as you say, right now, and it's really, really important that everybody listening understands that. Now, there was a news article very recently about the Mail Online. Their online director just saying how much their e-commerce platform has been impacted by Google's AI reviews, because people aren't just clicking on stuff anymore. They are they're using AI overviews to answer questions, and then they're not going further down the screen to actually then click on the links. So, you know, we've heard 34% down. You know, so the SEO, the old search engine optimization, that is really starting to fall apart. And as you say, people are going on to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, these AI large language models, and are using them to find very specifically the thing that they are looking for. And it will not be long before tenants are doing exactly the same and are searching for their dream property, perfect property. And you are going to need to be with an agent. And this goes to your point right at the start, that understands AI, that is changing how they get out there. Because if you don't, then already you are starting to be bypassed by this technology.
Well, again, I mean, you know, let's shift onto the conversation about the portals. You know, they'd be nervous, I think, and particularly Rightmove with the fortress that they've built and held for 20 years. I thought it was interesting. They've just done their recent results, and I know they are predicting another 10% of revenue growth next year, which historically I would say I mean, they've got it nailed on because they'll just increase their prices to achieve
Exactly, quite short, but
offset any market loss. I think genuinely for the first time, you know, we've had critical moments where Rightmove's monopoly could have been toppled, and I think the most recent of those was COVID.
I agree.
You know, there was a glaring opportunity there for agents to really turn the tables whilst there was no market, and switch Rightmove off. I think it would have been a very interesting time. But nonetheless, I am not per se anti Rightmove, despite my history of relationship with them and our very public falling out 5 years ago. You know, business is business, and I know there are lots of agents up and down the country who get phenomenal value from Rightmove. However, getting back on the point of AI, when we look at the consumer experience, you know, what are the things that consumers, people looking to rent or buy, what are the things they hate? They hate property that doesn't have enough information. And despite attempts to improve that, the material information, that obviously all got chucked to the bin recently, and everyone's confused with consumer protection laws and everything else. Thank you, rating standards. But people want more and accurate information. They want a response. You know, we know that 50% of leads that go unanswered has been unchanged in probably the 20 years portals have been around.
And it's international. It's exactly the same,
it doesn't really change. And we know the other frustration is fake stock or outdated listings. Intentionally fake stock that was never available, or listings that are long gone that are kept on as a kind of vanity or lead attraction magnet. But for the consumer looking, that's not what they want. And like we talked about now, just like landlords are now going to be able to search with greater success the agent that they want to work with. And again, we all work different ways. There are some landlords out there who will love to have a really gung-ho kind of cutthroat sales thing, you know, turn around fast, get the most rent, move on. And there will be others that will take a slightly more tenant or resident centric approach to rentals, but it gives them that nuance. And so, as you said, logic dictates tenants are going to do the same, right?
100%.
I want to find this property, I want to live in this area, this is where. And also, again, it's that conversation. So it's a bit like, again, thinking of AI like your personal assistant. If you were going to brief your personal assistant to go out and find you your home, you'd give them all the key information, right? You'd tell them, right, I need to commute to here for work. These are where my 4 best mates live. These are my favorite restaurants. These are the things I like to do on weekends. Like, this is my budget. This is when I need to move. These are things it absolutely has to have. And then on top of that, ideally, I'd love it to be with an agent who has a good reputation. Because that's the other thing, right? Right now, tenants absolutely can't do any filtering about who they work with for that property. It is just that clean search, and they hope that the agent, or if it's through the likes of Open Rent or whatever, the private landlord is one of the good ones. But again, like landlords now, you know, tenants will be able to frame that search in a much greater way. And they're, you know, are people still going to want to go on the likes of Rightmove and Zoopla and scroll through property porn? Probably.
I think there's still going to be a market for that. But I do want to, and look, you know, for me, I'm a portal boy. Like I said, you know, Prime Location, Zoopla, I love it. I think, you know, what they brought was this aggregation and simplicity of searching that previously you had to go through scrappy like bits of paper and magazines and pop into your local agent, all that.
We all remember the days of printing out availables lists in your office and handing them to people. Well, I say we all. There will hopefully be people listening to this going, what
the hell are you talking about? What was loot?
As we often reminisce, the box of applicant cards on your desk, your printed off availables list on the coffee table in your office, or in your little like dispenser that you'd have on the front of your shop or office. Your mail answering postings, you go and drop them on the local coffee shop tables. And all the fun and frolic that we used to do. Glamour. Glamour and window cards actually being something other than a window decoration.
Actually,
halcyon days of vacancy 20-25 years ago.
And I think, you know, so portals, I think, have served a really good purpose over that period of time, but kind of like print a little bit, you know, that the new world and new way of doing things is coming along like a train, and it's going to change them, and they have choices, you know. So again, it's not that I am anti, even distinct. I'm certainly not anti the other portals, but Rightmove, I have a particular problem with, in that it has continued to increase its prices. You just said about 10% this year, even though inflation is 2.5%, although it's now 3.5% today.
I mean, look, that's what they hope their revenue will grow by. I mean, when we were a customer of Rightmove, on average, it was 20% year on year.
Exactly right. So there will be some people who dive in and say, okay, fine, and some people who resist, and that's why it'll end up there. But I do think that they have been scooping money out of the industry for way too long, and it's not like they're innovating with it or using it for anything interesting. So, you know, lettings agents out there are paying through the nose for it. They know that a good chunk of that is just going to buy back shares or to, you know, for dividends or whatever. It's not that it's being invested in this industry and helping anybody. So that's
I think that's the greatest frustration, I think, for most agents. I think fundamentally, when you get past it, most agents understand the fundamental value in Rightmove. They just feel like they are having money pilfered from their pocket. For no other legitimate reason other than Rightmove can. They
can, exactly right. So that's my big problem. So I think that AI now coming along and how a portal is going to look in the future. As you say, it is true that it's easier to talk into your phone. We speak 3 times on average faster than we write, than we type. So humans being humans, we are going to find ourselves using either the most efficient, or another way of putting it, the laziest way of communicating, and that is going to be talking into our phones, and that is going to change how people interact with portals, or how people interact with property discovery. So if you take that as a given, and I think, you know, the technology, and we use it here at Model Prop, you know, we've got a voice AI out there that's so good, and actually behaves like an AI receptionist, and literally will field calls, can go and check and book viewings. It's so immediate and cool that pretty soon, and as you say, this is going to be faster than the internet. The internet, kind of, you could argue, up until the global financial crisis in 2008, there was still a lot of print around. Suddenly, then everybody looked at it and went, "What the hell are we doing this for?" and got rid of it. I think this is going to be a more fundamental change, a quicker change. Next 2-3 years, we're all going to be talking to our phones and describing our dream job, our dream car, our dream property.
You won't even talking to your phone. You'll have a headphone in constantly. You'll have a device on your neck. You'll have a wristband, whatever it is. Some people, I think, will just get an implant.
They'd so
I see people do that just with even RFID chips and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. To get into clubs was one that I saw.
It's, you know, your glasses. Is it the Ray-Bans ones?
Yeah, it's the Meta Ray-Bans. Yeah,
you know, have the vibration, the audio bone that it basically vibrates and picks up your voice, and you can hear. You don't need a headphone.
Yeah, and it's recording. So, you know, so it's recording everything you watch, and it's gathering all that data and that information. It's learning about you, and it knows that you've got a new baby that's just arrived, and it knows that you may need to move house soon as a result. And, you know, actually this child is coming up to school age, so we've got to try and find like the right schools and things like that. So all of that stuff, you're not even going to have to tell it, like you said.
The imminent wave is also the next wave of this. Is agentic, right? Is agentic AI. So for those who don't know what that phrase means, it's where AI will take a more active role in facilitating things for you. They will genuinely become your assistant. So you won't just say, "Find me," as we highlighted earlier. Here's a really detailed parameter of what my ideal home looks like.
Yeah.
Right. What are the 5 properties you found that most closely match that criteria? Great. I want to go and see those Thursday afternoon. Book them in with all the agents, factoring in travel time between the properties.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things,
right?
Yeah, some of the searches that you can do now using so anybody out there who's got ChatGPT, if you're paying the $20, you've got the plus version. You get 10 of these deep research options every single month. All right, so just underneath where you put in the prompt, there's a button that says deep research. So I give that a go. Practice. This is all about the AI literacy piece. And put in a search. So just any old property or any kind of property. Think of your dream property. Type it in. Hit deep research. It will go away for like 5-10 minutes. All right, and it will do all this searching for you. And this is the agentic piece, as you say, Kristjan. It will go and if you say it needs to be near an outstanding school, it will go and check Ofsted, and you can see it going and checking Ofsted and coming back with results of those schools. You can see it going, and if you want to see view, it's going and checking the photos to find out see views. So this is unbelievably helpful. It's literally, but suddenly, and more so talking about the portals, this is 100% of the market. So it won't just go and search Rightmove. It will go and search Rightmove on the market, Zoopla, and agent websites.
Well, and also open rent, private landlords, you know, all the sources,
everything.
No bouncing around. And again, why did the portals do well? Convenience.
Convenience. Absolutely.
Right? It's why portals have done well. It's why Rightmove clinching that top 10 SEO position.
Yeah.
Which is something that doesn't often get talked about, but Rightmove is a top 10 UK website and has been for most of the last 20 years.
100%.
It is your let's Google something. You hear Rightmove used in the same terms as Google, Hoover, whatever, these brands that have become verbs.
Yeah, exactly.
And you hear it on panel shows and news broadcasts and blah, blah, blah. Rightmove is referred to as an overarching term.
Yeah.
But it was that thing, wasn't it? It was rather than walking down your local high street and walking into 10 different estate agents' offices and having the myriad of interactions. That would be
saying the same thing over and over again.
20 lists shoved in your lap, and then you go and sit in a greasy spoon cafe and wade through the lists and figure out what, if anything, you wanted to look like. Go back to those agents' offices, only to discover that half of the ones that you shortlisted are already gone. What did portals do? Hey, I don't need to do that anymore. Rump. Here we go. Here's everything in my lap, and I can fire off the inquiries. And AI is now the next chapter in that. It is taking that and refining it with extra criteria, with extra definition, and like we said, soon also the step of facilitating viewings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it is not very difficult, and it's going to be a very simple step for that to start to happen. And again, with the voice stuff, it's there. So I think that the portals have got challenges, and and how they respond to this challenge is going to be interesting. As you said, Rightmove's strategy seems to be closing its ears and saying la 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 very loudly, and carrying on charging agents as much as possible and more every single year for the foreseeable. And they've got a strategy going up to 2028 where that is exactly what they're going to do. So it remains to be seen whether they're going to change. But into that space, as you say, comes this idea that actually, if you can ensure that you are keeping an eye on AI, you are working with AI, you're optimizing your sites, you're working with others that are able to do that for you and with you, then you've got an opportunity. Right? This is an opportunity to start thinking about what life looks like without that arm lock around you. And I know, Kristjan, you released the arm lock about 5 years ago. I know that's been great, and I could see that the freedom that brought.
I've heard a rumor there is a room somewhere that still has my picture on a dartboard, and I think following this podcast, it might get some new extra points scored against it.
Yeah. So yes, I think everything's up for grabs, and I think this is a really, really exciting time. So yeah, the absolute priority is learn. Go and find, as you say, listen to use TLDR, and there's other ones like the AI Daily, and things that really are great digests of what's happening out in the big bad world with AI. But yeah, going forwards, we are all going to need, just like now, we all know how to use the internet. We all kind of like it's second nature. The quicker you can understand AI and see what's coming down the track, then the faster you are going to be able to ingest it into your business and to be servicing your customers and your clients better. And that means more business.
Look, so I think this brings us on quite nicely to another phrase used in agency, which I feel is a complete dichotomy. I think it's so true and also so untrue. this safety blanket that agents issue of people buy from people. And look, on one side, absolutely, when they like those people, when those people make them feel liked and valued, and when those people deliver a result. However, what we all know is there are lots of people within our industry that don't deliver that experience. I saw an interesting one today. John Paul, who used to be buying Castle Dean, now has Prospector Pro. He posted an interesting one in his little group. I can't remember if this morning or yesterday, but basically saying he's been reaching out to a lot of agents recently. They're in the market. I can't remember if they're buying or selling. I think they're looking to buy. But his insights were fascinating. He was saying, you know, it is a regular occurrence that it is taking between 2 days and a week to get a reply. And this is someone who is reaching out going, oh, you've got something I want to buy.
Yeah. And it's a permanent problem, isn't it? You know, like you say at the start, it's something that has not changed over 20 odd years, and it is something that when you speak to agents in Australia, or speak to portals in Australia and in America, it's exactly the same. It is just the last thing that people seem to get to. And you know, with Prospector Pro, great piece of kit, you know, and others, that there are ways of now making sure that happens. You know,
but I think there's a tendency with agency with tech, and I'm sure this will apply also with AI. There's a tendency to expect, if not perfection, absolute excellence from tech, to a higher standard of what an agency will expect of its staff.
That is so true.
So they will, you know, they will have a member of staff who they are moderately happy with. You know, 75% of the time they do a good job, and 25% of the time, nothing disastrous, but they do drop the ball quite often. And then they will be presented with a product that can solve that problem, but it doesn't do extra stuff, but it takes 5 minutes of data entry to facilitate that. But because this isn't integrated with every software product that the agent uses and their CRM and everything else, it's safer to stick with Frank.
Yes, inefficient.
At 75% performance, they're not for a tech product at 80 or 85% performance. And I think this is going to be the same thing with AI. I think there's going to be agencies that go, yeah, but you know, I asked ChatGPT something the other day, and like most of it was on point, but it gave a couple of bit of bollocks, and it was like, oh, really?
It's so true.
Because no agent's ever done that before.
Yeah, and you see it all the way through everything. So
oh, yeah. I mean, I did get a response straight away, and I did get to book my viewing, but it couldn't answer me how long the lease was.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this can also be true with humans.
Yeah.
I know many sales viewing that's been booked where the agent is unable to answer key answers like how long is left on the lease, what the ground rent service charges, you know, whatever else. But also, you know, so what's more important to the customer? Getting an instant solution to their inquiry. Hi, I'd like to see this on Thursday at 3 o'clock. Boom, that's booked in. Or by the way, can you tell me X, Y, Z? A member of our team will be in touch before the viewing to relay that information. Okay. What's better, that or I want to see this property on Thursday, and on Thursday morning you get an email going, oh, and I'd also like to know X, Y, Z. And on Thursday morning, you get an email going, hey, great, we can squeeze you in at 1:15 today. And by the way, here's the answer to your questions. Yeah. What's the better experience? Yeah. I think we can all agree that whilst the digital experience wasn't perfect, the primary objective was they wanted to view the property.
And it's to your point about this people and property, that's kind of dichotomy almost, is what we spend all of our time talking about is Model Pop is getting the machines to do the machine job and getting the humans to do the human job. So you've got Frank, as you say, who's like, you know, can do some of this stuff that is great. So get Frank doing the human stuff. that the machines can't do, and get the machines doing the machine stuff. And one of the really great use cases is this this voice, right? So if you've got a machine that can basically answer the phone, can chat with somebody, can answer some questions, and then when it gets stuck, it will forward it on to somebody else. And it does that consistently, and 95% of the time is great. As you say, if you actually get humans doing that instead, where they're taking messages, putting things through, trying to find people, wasting all that time, is so expensive way of doing that process. And you might say, well, yeah, but 100% of the time that person, you know, will in the end get it right. It's like, but it's costing you an absolute fortune. So I think that is true, and it's also true in autonomous cars, interestingly. So our acceptance of road crashes in autonomous cars is like, we won't accept any, and yet humans crash into humans all the time.
And we don't go, humans can't be allowed to drive cars.
Exactly. Let's stop everybody. Right, that human over there, right, they are, I don't know, a 40-year-old bloke. Let's stop all 40-year-old blokes from driving cars because they are bad at it. So yeah, it's just really interesting, as you say, that actually people have a far less tolerance, lower tolerance.
Well, Ian Preston. So for those who don't know who Ian Preston is, former owner MD of Preston Baker, and now building out Greenhouse OS, which is a kind of AI-driven agency CRM system. But he did a really interesting post on LinkedIn a week or two ago, and again, it was coming back to this thing of agents wanting stuff, but being so particular and needing it to be so perfect. And in saying this, and there will definitely be suppliers listening to this who have pitched me products for base, and I've gone, yeah, but it doesn't do this, so we're not touching it. So, hands up. I know that I am also guilty of this as well. I know that I have a rather challenging reputation within segments of the supplier market on the agency side of things. But he did a really interesting post, which was fundamentally around the premise of streamlining the inquiries and viewings process. And the premise was loads of agents I speak to would love this system to be automated, would love it to be seamless. Inquiry comes in, gets validated, gets cross-matched, gets matched into the diaries, booked in, bomb, done. He was like, however, when it comes to actually delivering that to agents, there is then a myriad of, but it doesn't ask this question, and it doesn't do that, and it doesn't know that Sandra actually doesn't like to do viewings at that time. That's when she grabs lunch with her husband who works down the street, and we don't want to go to that property 3 times over 2 days. We just, we want it as a block viewing. And look, no, some of these nuances are valid, and some of these nuances tech are getting and building into their system. But again, it is ignoring that agent's current failings on managing inquiries and booking viewings. And I think if every single agent, hand on heart, knows that no agent gets that right all the time, no matter how good you are, and a lot of agents, again, coming back to our 50% stat, we know a lot of agents get it really wrong. So again, coming back to the example before, what is better? An instant solution that might need a little bit of tweaking. You might need, God forbid, your team might need to pick up the phone for 1 in 5 viewings and go, look, guys, I know our system booked you in for this, but I'm really sorry. We're going to need to move you X, Y, Z.
But you have 4 that
they understand, give them a legitimate reason, as long as there's advance warning. And if the reality is they just simply can't view the property at that time, But what is worse from a customer perspective? Those 1 in 5 getting a call the next day, where often this will happen out of hours, right? So 60, I'm sure I'm right in saying it's about 60-65% of leads come in out of traditional office hours, evenings and weekends, when people are just browsing, aren't they, when they've got the time. So what is a worse or better customer experience? Having 80% of them getting the outcome that they wanted instantly, and 20% of those thinking they have, and having a call in the next day or two to go, really sorry, we need to move it, or we need to cancel it, or whatever. Or 100% of those people waiting till the following working day, 2, 3, 5, 7 days.
Yeah.
If ever,
yeah,
get a response and to get booked in.
Yeah, exactly that.
And you all know the answer to that, right? So it's and that's why it comes back to this whole thing of questioning people buy from people. I absolutely, look, again, anyone who knows what Anne and I have built at base, we've built an agency with personality. So I'm not for 1 second saying that the future of agency is these autonomous, faceless kind of digital automatons that just have a different label on the front. You're absolutely, I think actually tech will make agency more personal than it's ever been.
Yes, absolutely.
What agents will do, you won't spend time putting data into spreadsheets. You won't spend time asking someone, when can they move? Do they need it furnished? Do they have a car? You know,
machines doing the machine stuff. Absolutely. So you can then get the humans to essentially target everything.
And a laugh and some banter and
go, find themselves down coffee shops, go to, coffee mornings, go to the golf club, do things that are building relationships, because that is going to be the thing that machines cannot do. And that to me is why we have another phrase about basically authenticity at scale. So what you're going to be able to get is, by using AI, you're going to drop away all of the stuff that everybody else does, all of that repetitive nonsense, and then the authentic bit of you, the thing that looks up from its screen and goes out and talks to other humans, you're going to be able to do that at scale. And that's brilliant. And that's what I think is coming down the track. And again, any agents listening out there, that's what you've got to try and get your head towards, is what is it that's unique about us? Why aren't we out there doing more of it? And what do I need to put in place behind me so that I can?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think there's what's the stat is it with tech? I think it's people overestimate what will happen in 5 years, but underestimate what will happen in 10.
Yeah.
I genuinely think the pace AI is moving now. I think this is going to be the first thing that blows that out of the water. I think what happens in the next 5 years, that there are going to be seismic shifts beyond that. I forget the technical word. What's the
exponential curve.
Yeah, the exponential curve of innovation and evolution. I mean, look, you can now, is it? I think it's DJI who are bringing out a supercomputer you can have on your desk for $5,000.
Yes. Yeah.
Bona fide supercomputer.
Yeah.
For $5,000, which is that you and I remember 15, 20. Well, you can spend that on a Mac now.
Yeah.
If you really want to. But I remember the desktop Macs 15 years ago. If you wanted to buy the ones with decent amount of memory, which would be a laughable memory now,
exactly right,
you're dropping $4 or $5,000 on those.
Yeah, your phone is
now talking about a computer that can run your entire business and that is yours, sat on your desk, and it's not much bigger than a VHS cassette.
Yes, and that's now. Like you say, in 2 years' time, it's going to be on our phones or in our glasses, or they are making so much technological advances in terms of processing and memory and all that sort of stuff, that it's just getting smaller and smaller. So yeah, pretty soon you're going to be able to run your business, like say, off your phone, and it's just going to be it's going to enable people to go and do people stuff, and that to me is just an absolute. I can't wait. It's going to be so exciting.
So let's dive into some a little bit of kind of actionable stuff. Okay, so I think one thing that I kind of stay true to on this point is, I think, look, there's lots of industry specific products out there, and a lot of us as suppliers are, or should be, looking to see how we leverage the power of AI within our products. So I think I don't think agents necessarily need to go and rethink the wheel just yet, in that I don't think you need to kind of try and figure out how you're going to personally map AI into every nook and cranny of your business just yet.
Okay.
Let your specialist providers have those conversations. Absolutely reach out to your providers and understand what their attitude and approach to AI is. Because I think if you're working in a marketplace with 3, 4, 5 suppliers, and the one that you're working with now is all right, but when you have a chat with them and you ask what their AI plans are, if they don't have a very clear strategy of what a couple of ways they're going to leverage AI to a substantial benefit for you in the next 12 months, you need to be thinking about who that partner is.
A huge signal, absolutely. Yeah, well, one of the big CRM systems, who shall remain nameless, had a recent relaunch of everything they're going to be doing this year, and it didn't mention AI. And honestly, when you just kind of, I read through it and then read through it again and watched all the videos, and literally there was not a mention of AI. And I think that the pace of this has caught some of these businesses off guard. It has forced them to to kind of almost ignore it a little bit, because their plans are very specifically to do this thing, and they've got this update and blah blah blah, and that roadmap is tear it up. As
we know, I mean, younger, smaller businesses are more agile, and that's true pretty much in every marketplace. But I think in tech as well, I think the fear for your titans, for your Repits, your MRIs, your Altos, your CFPs, and everything else. I think the challenges you've got for legacy is it's such a break from what they are as a legacy product that I mean, Repit obviously did the move of doing Repit Foundation's App Store a few years ago, which was a movement in the right direction, but it took a lot of umming and erring and talking and nudging and everything else to get to where that was,
didn't it?
And I think AI is exponentially more challenging, but I think most of the young businesses that I talk to and the new businesses that are launching fresh off the back of this, when we talked about Greenhouse OS, I saw a wicked property management solution that's being built the other day called Ask Vinny.
Oh yeah,
super cool. I've kind of consulted is way too formal, but we've had chats over the last few months about what the refinement looks like, and we had a demo. We're very seriously looking at bringing that into our property management operation at base.
Wow.
And they're already thinking about what that expanded ecosystem looks like. So they've not only got their AI solutions, but they're already looking at partners. So they've got a property maintenance solution, which is kind of, if you I quite often like it when people go, oh, if AI and Canva had a baby. It's kind of like if AI and Fixflow had a baby. It is that, it is taking that, or AI and Property File, it's taking that and just applying the next level to it. They factored in an element, quite a decent element of customization to deliver the flows that you want. And they've already done a partnership with WeFix Now, which, if anyone who's not familiar with WeFix Now, brilliant business from Ezan, and it just it leverages tech and people in a great way to solve maintenance. So he's got a team of experienced contractors, and the first thing that happens when you sign up to their service, if your tenant's got an issue, they go on a phone call or a FaceTime call with a plumber, electrician, gas engineer, whatever, who will on the phone go through and try and troubleshoot that issue with them.
Amazing.
Why wouldn't you? Oh, try this, check that, boom, boom, boom.
Amazing.
And then if that doesn't work, I believe I'm right in saying you can either use their contractors to go out, or they will generate a detailed works order for you to then pass on to your contractor of choice. So you've had an expert engineer go, right, it's this make and model. I think it's the heat diverter valve on the boiler or whatever it is. They've done an initial diagnosis. It's fault F4 or whatever it is. Boom. Done, and off you go. And so you can already embed that in. It's already embedding prompts for video inspections, for tenants to do video inspections themselves. Super cool.
Love it. That's the kind of business I love. That whole kind of rebuilding something that is a standard problem and has been around for as long as tenancies have been around, and actually just rethinking it and finessing it, and actually finding really just proper advanced ways of using technology out there.
Talking about accessibility of cost, right? So they have built out 2 modules. Their goal is to build out 4 key modules initially. They've done 2: inquiry management and property maintenance. In tenancy, duration, property maintenance. Those are the two that are live. I forget what the other two they're working on are at the moment.
But those are the chunky ones, right? Or
but each of those,
yeah,
their rate, and I believe I'm right saying this, is £1.25 per month per property on your portfolio. So if you manage 200 tenancies, which is a very common portfolio size for smaller letting agents around the country,
yeah,
you know, you're looking at what, 250 quid a month if you adopt. We're probably not going to adopt the inquiries one straight away. I think we're going to do the maintenance. So yeah, I mean, we look after about 300 properties, so we're looking at a cost of what, £360, £375 a month.
Wow.
To pretty much eliminate all of that first line property maintenance issues. And you can put in those triggers. So when you do get those sticky situations, the ones that a workflow can't resolve, you've still got the ability to escalate that to your human property managers. But guess what? They're now not spending a third of their day dealing with this standardized stuff. And like I said, you plug in WeFix. Now, obviously, that does bring an extra cost to that service, but you plug that in, and for, I don't know, £500-600 a month, you have now automated and streamlined 90% of your maintenance responses.
Yes. And how many people or humans were doing that job before, you know, and what was that costing? And it's just,
and again, it comes back to that thing of, well, not just how many were doing it, but how many were doing it well. And as we move into the renters' rights bills, we move into periodic tenancies, where tenants will no longer be obligated to put up with shit service because they're tied into a 1, 2, 3 year tenancy agreement, and the agent knows, or the landlord knows, that ultimately, as long as the place ain't a death threat and you're not in breach of any major regs, they're probably not going to go anywhere. Tenants won't put up with this shit anymore. You know, if stuff doesn't get fixed, if they don't get a timely response, if they don't get listened to, they'll just go, you know what, so yes. You know, and because there won't be the pressure, they'll be under no obligation to work to a very specific time frame. They, you know, you won't know until it's too late. They'll look to find their ideal next home, and again, referring back to what we've talked about later, off the back of that experience, they might go, do you know what? I've had such a bad experience with this agent. Do not bring me any instructions by this agent. And I now want an agent with an exemplary reputation.
And by the way, also, can you just log a complaint? Can you also report it to the appropriate authorities? And at the same time, can you drop a Trustpilot review that says how terrible they are? And it would just, and that's it. And it will just happen.
And tenants will just turn around, they'll go, do you know what? I'm not putting up with this. I'm out of here. Oh, wait. No, dude, not wait. I've already signed a tenancy agreement. You know, I'm moving there in 3 weeks. Here's my 1 month's notice. You know, and that will be it. And I don't think that's a bad thing, fundamentally. I don't think now, there is a flip side to that. You know, one of the knock-on effects, and again, you could argue this shouldn't really be a tenant's responsibility anyway, but when landlords are confronted with issues that are outside of their control, a block management issue, you know, a freeholder that isn't acting. I mean, my God, we had a nightmare with Tower Hamlets, who were a freeholder on a flat of ours that had a roof leak. It took us 2 years. 2 years, and I think 275 emails.
Jesus.
To get Tower Hamlets to fix it. I mean, we took them to town, and we got them to cover the entire loss of rent, because we had to let the tenants move out and everything else. My God, the amount of money that council must be hemorrhaging.
Yeah, because that's not going to be the only one, is it?
And again, you know, AWAB's law, decent home standard, HHSRS, you know, there is more and more and more coming in. And what has always protected bad agents, bad landlords, bad social housing providers, bad freeholders, has been the complex nature of accessing detailed and actionable information, right? Again, it's that thing of, you go to Google now, my landlord's not fixing my boiler, what do I do? And you will get, probably first page, you'll probably have 20 FAQ tips on agent websites that they've done for backlinking. Like, here's what you do if your boiler doesn't work. But none of it is really actionable. None of it really tells you what the legislation sits under that and how you enforce that. I think that's always been the crux of the matter. But AI will transform that, because, like you said, tenants will go, they will just tell AI what they've been going through.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't had hot water for a week and I've called my landlord 5 times. What the fuck do I do? And guess what? AI will be like you said, here are your rights, here are the obligations, here's an email that we can send to the landlord and your local council instantly. Would you like to send this? We've been on your letting agent website and we found their official complaints procedure. Would you like us to start the first step of that process?
Yeah, exactly that. It's going to be served up, but it's going to be so straightforward.
Or tenants weren't going to take that time to educate themselves. They weren't going to take the time and effort to go through those steps.
Yeah.
Talked about, they've got the best assistant in the world ever who's going, oh, by the way, you know, that first step of the official complaint, the agent hasn't come back in 7 days. Would you like me to send the next step?
Yeah, exactly that. And this is to your point about the practicalities of this is, you know, actually, what can you go out and do today? I think you really, really have got to understand how ChatGPT is working now. So that deep research thing, click on that, because that is your window into the future, because it is so detailed and so good. There's another one called Manus, M-A-N-U-S, Manus AI. And that's really worth a little look as well, because that's even more agentic, as you say. So agentic AI being one that you give a purpose to, essentially. So you give it a purpose, it will go and it will, you don't tell it how to go and do it. It will go off and do it and it will be amazing. And essentially it runs little independent AIs itself. And I think, you know, as we kind of go through, one of the core jobs that we as humans are going to have is this orchestration of these AIs. So you're going to have AIs doing little things within your business, and you're going to have somebody who needs to know what they're all doing. And I think there's the quote from Sam Altman, who's the chief exec of OpenAI, who built ChatGPT, and he said, you know, by this time next year, we're all going to have at least one AI working alongside us. And I think that's true. You know, people are going to find that having this extra assistant that knows everything, that is intelligence on tap, on demand, that's going to be a fundamental requirement for really good businesses going forward. And I think everybody out there should really pay attention to that and start practicing now.
Well, so, you know, we touched this earlier, and it's a good time to come back to this now. So I've talked about, you know, you've got suppliers within the space who are now properly looking at AI. So I think last year, 18 months ago, you had some companies who, and full credit to them for jumping on the innovation quickly. You had a lot of agents jump on the quick wins, the property descriptions, the, you know, whatever it was, you know, the really quick, easy, plug it in, simple prompt, bosh, off you go.
Staging, yeah, absolutely.
It literally just touched the surface. But I think, you know, we've been looking at AI in depository for the last 18 months, 2 years, playing around with how we leverage it, what those prompts look like. Did we go open source? Did we double down and build our own LLMs, which actually, you know, 18 months ago seemed like an absolute crazy idea. I read an article yesterday that was actually, it's actually not that crazy anymore.
Yeah.
He said, again, the cost and the parameters have plummeted.
Yeah, and the security of having your own one is really, really important, I would suggest, particularly with all the data that you're working with tenants or landlords. Yes, being able to know that is not leaking out into a wider ecosystem is really, really important.
But look, we looked at it and we looked at how do we leverage it? You know, how do we leverage it? And initially we came up with the quick wins, the easy wins. But we were like, it's AI is worth so much more than that. It's capable of so much more than that. And so we wanted to look at how we address, coming back to what we've talked about, really, how we address the disparity of performance within an agency itself or within our industry sector, right? How you differentiate between the good performers and the bad performers, whether they're in your business, whether you're a big enough business to have a big enough team where you've got that, or, you know, like we said, as an industry, the top and bottom performers within our industry and how you tackle that. And so we've got a lot of data and reporting. I quite like playing around with a platform called Julius AI, which is a kind of research and data-led AI engine, which does some quite cool things. And we basically chucked it a ton of our data reports. We pulled out, I think, 3 years user data across. We've got like 6 or 7 reports, and we, rather than figuring it out ourselves, we're missing a trick here. We chucked that all in, and we said, where are you, or is AI able to create the greatest transformational shift by either enabling the top performers to handle the work capacity of the entire operation, or how we can turn the bottom 50%, how we can transform their performance from the bottom 50% to replicate the top 20. And so it identified 3 areas within depository and what we do, and that is the way in which deduction or liability proposals are organized and presented, the way in which they are negotiated in terms of speed of response, what's the word, not empathy, but acknowledgement of a tenant's points, and fulfillment of their requests, and then actionable data. And so that's very much what we're building. So we looked at that and we played around with some stuff very quickly, and then we spent the last 9-12 months refining what that looked like, thinking about where we think AI is going. So we have very much built this thinking about agentic AI. So right now it's initially going to be an assistant. It's going to be a tool that assists people, and that will remain the same, but the scope of the assistance it gives can be scaled up in time.
It's going to grow.
So our first tool, which we're building now, which we're hopefully going to release next month at some point, is negotiations. So the biggest disparity that we found in our platform from a data perspective is how users negotiate with tenants when their original proposals are not accepted. And what we see there is the top sort of 10-15% of performers are in the 90 or even 95% performance bracket. So we track key data in our platform, which is proposed deductions versus the final agreed amount. And we have that numerically and also as a percentage. And we think that's really important for 2 reasons. Because that percentage actually represents 2 things. It represents that fundamentally, if you're achieving 90+%, that underpins 2 core things with your business. That theoretically, your deductions are legitimate and fair. And alongside that, that you are competent negotiators. And they are 2 important things to convey to your landlord clients. We are very good at what we do. We have very good processes, but we follow the law. And for that reason, we will, on average, achieve you 90+% of any deduction, any deposit proposal. So we know the top 10-15% of users are in that 90 percentile. We have got a substantial number of individual users actually who are on the 100% mark on multiple cases. Phenomenal. But we also know what bad looks like. Know what 50% of those user stats look like, and it's not pretty. But what AI told us is fundamentally those results, they believe, are due to a handful of key factors: how the deductions are proposed and presented, and the language used, and the evidence accompanying it. When a tenant counters a proposal, how that is reacted and responded to, time of response, time it takes to respond, content of that response, and the emotive tone of that response. What we see in the bottom performers is that unsurprisingly, the responses are slow.
Yeah.
Defensive. They are defensive or just downright ignorant. They don't reference a single point that the tenant has said. You know, some users just put see previous response.
Guaranteed to wind people up.
I mean, you might as well just put that emoji.
Exactly right.
And it ignores a request. So the tenant might go, I'm not necessarily against this, but I'd really like to see an invoice or a quote that backs up the fact that this is going to cost that amount of money, and one doesn't get provided.
Yeah.
And so what are we gearing AI to do? We are gearing it to counter, but acknowledge all the key points that the tenant makes in a counter offer. If in a counter offer, the tenant says, I would like more evidence, I would like to see an invoice. If a user uses our tool to respond, so we will have a generate response tool. If they try to send that response and there is no new piece of evidence attached, it will flag it to say the tenant has asked for more evidence. Now, it's not going to be perfect because at the moment we can't read that evidence. So they've asked for a contractor invoice. They might have uploaded a photo of something completely different.
Still,
at the moment we won't know.
Yeah.
Again, 2, 3, 5 years down the line, AI will be able to go, I can see you've added a photo of this, but the tenant's actually asked for an invoice or a quote. Do you have one?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's going to flag it, saying that the tenant has asked for this, you've not provided it. And those tools will hopefully enable an agent to do that quicker. And what we're building as a substructure to that is the preparation for agentic AI. So when the technology and our customers get comfortable enough with the performance of that tool, we are building into that the parameters to say, do you know what? I'm happy for AI to do the first 3 rounds of negotiation on my behalf.
And I think that's genius, because what you're doing is you are leading people through this new world, because what's happening right now, as you say, is not going to be what's happening in 2 years' time, 3 years' time. But the sooner you know and understand what's happening now, the sooner you're going to be able to understand what's happening in 2, 3 years' time. So that jump to agentic and you know it being able to do everything autonomously, you need to be walking alongside it to know how that is building and how that is developing, and also as you've done with Depository and Base, is to think about, right, what does that mean for me as a business? If again, intelligence is going to be everywhere, it's going to be on demand, on tap, and if then that intelligence is going to be able to go and do things for me, and I'm just going to send it and give it tasks, then which of the tasks I'm going to start to test that with? You know, what are the low hanging fruit, but also low risk tasks that I can start to go and investigate and start to kind of play around with, just so that I can see what this AI can do in action. Yeah.
And so, you know, that's where we're starting. So we're going to do negotiations first. And in that, we're also, again, preparing for agentic. We're remapping slightly. We currently get most landlords are required to sign off on proposals within our platform. Part of this new release, we're also going to seek a negotiation framework from the landlord. So as part of the sign-off process when we do this release, rather than saying, yeah, I'm happy with the 600 quid's worth of deductions you've proposed, they will also be asked, if we're unable to get the whole amount for you, what is the minimum you're happy for us to negotiate for on your behalf? And that landlord will be prompted to give a guide to that, whether it's a custom amount or a percentage. But they will set that parameter to go, look, get me 400 quid and I'm happy. Get me 75% and I'm happy. And so again, we're setting that framework again to gear, but that's going to benefit agents straight away. So agents straight away will get that information now. Great. Landlord, you know, wants us to get 600, but as long as we get him 400 quid, we're good to go. I can just crack on now. And again, that's all worked into the prompts. So, you know, we'll know what that negotiation consent is. If an agent is proposing an amount where it doesn't meet that parameter, it will alert them. It doesn't block them, but it will alert them to say, just to be aware, you're not meeting your landlord's minimum that we have required in the system. And again, that data is there for the future.
To show who's good at actually getting close to it, who rolls over too easy, that sort of stuff. Yeah, really good, really interesting.
So it's really fascinating. And then, straight off the back of that, we're going to do the proposals bit. So we've got our fantastic inventory partner integrations. We've already got a kind of delete and merge functionality to curate those, but that will now become AI. I think initially we're still going to need to keep that human delete function. The human is still going to need to go, these 15 things in the inventory aren't relevant because they're wear and tear and they're stuff we knew about, whatever. AI, I don't think it's quite ready for that yet because it just doesn't have the insight with CRMs and everything else. But in time,
huge. The risk of basically just winding everybody up on that is too big to automate right now. Yeah.
But you'll still now have that human filter, and then the human will just go, right, 60 things are coming from the checkout report. These 15 are garbage. AI, do your stuff. And AI will go, cool, these 8 things are cleaning.
Yep.
It will compile them. We already do that, but at the moment, it is literally just consternated text. It is just, we're all about facts and evidence, but it's very facts and evidence at the moment. And so this is just going to, bizarrely, add that little human layer to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is what I love is it's actually making us rethink processes and inject humans into bits that they didn't have time to do before because they were too busy doing the other grunty bits. So yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to your sort of your balance between people, property as people. This is just an enabler. It's an enabler for us to go and be more human and do more good stuff that basically everybody wants anyway. So no, it's super exciting.
Dude, I think that's a good point for us to wrap it up there. I know you have got another event you're going to be running shortly. You're about to jump on another webinar that you're running about, weirdly, how AI can be used by estate agents to drive, I think it's growth, isn't it?
It is indeed. Absolutely, yes. So just and again, we do this every month. It's all part of our AI literacy thing. It's free. And yeah, our focus is on how can you use this stuff practically to win more business, cost, productivity, all that.
If you're listening to this, if you're not familiar with Mal already, get onto Model Prop, get on the website, get registered. Mal, if you also saw, he did a press release the other day. He's about to do a 60-day UK road tour, helping all of you understand how AI is going to change things with particular focus on the portals, right? So I am going to find out more about this at some ungodly hour tomorrow morning. Mal owes me big time because he's so convinced me to turn up to something at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, which anyone listening to has probably just burst out in laughter at the thought of it. I apologize to anyone who's in the room and how grumpy I might be. But no, I'm really excited to hear more about it, mate. And look, if you listen to this, just get over the fear. Start playing around. Start talking to people, whether you want to talk to agents like myself, and there's a myriad of us out there who will happily shoot the breeze, whether you want to talk to experts like Mal, whether you want an infill kind of help from the likes of people at Kerfuffle, or whatever it is. But the one thing you mustn't do is shy away from this, because it's going to move fast. So you need to get on the train, because otherwise it's not just going to be out the station. It's going to be in a different country by the time you're trying to get on board. So, Mal, always a pleasure, mate.
Really good to catch up. Thanks.
Coffee tomorrow morning better be good. But otherwise, I can't wait to hear what you've got to tell us tomorrow morning, mate. Thanks for your time, buddy. All right.
Good to see everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.